Welcome everyone to my reading of paragraph 329 in the Gay Science from Nietzsche, entitled in German Muße und Müßiggang, Leisure and Idleness. I will be reading from the Cambridge University translation, and I will refer to some of the German whenever I think necessary. This is a passage I discuss in my Idleness course, and we just discussed this actually at the seminars. If anyone's interested in the course for now, just as a self-learner, I will be leaving a link just down below so you can get the course and study the entire 7 lectures on your own. There's 7 videos and 7 different thinkers, beginning with Plato, Aristotle, Cicero, Humboldt, Nietzsche, Heidegger, Joseph Pieper. You can do that in your own time. And in German now I said Muße and Müßiggang. I'm not going to get too deeply into the word Muße, but it's quite an interesting word. It's very different from leisure. Leisure means to have the license to some free time. Muße is something else. Muße haben, the Bavarian vernacular, according to the Grimm Wörterbuch, the Grimm dictionary of the Brothers Grimm, Muße haben means that there's space, but also that there is a certain possibility that opens up to me. And of course the German word Möglichkeit is not really possibility either. That's actually better translated as likeliness. That which likes me and therefore opens up something to me if I respond to it in a liking, loving way as well. So that's Muße. Und Müßiggang often has negative connotations like idleness in English, but Müßiggang, as one of my students on Saturday pointed out, Daniel Zaruba pointed out that Müßiggang, he's Austrian, pointed out that Müßiggang can mean the Gang der Muße. Gang means to walk, so the path of leisure, Müßiggang. So this is what, even just the title here, a bit much is lost in translation, unfortunately, but that's perhaps what I can do is to read these passages slowly, not quickly, slowly, and actually listen to the words that are being spoken. Muße und Müßiggang, Leisure and Idleness. Again, this is in the 4th book of the Fröhliche Wissenschaft, of the Joyful or Gay Science, the book which is entitled Sanctus Januarius, Holy January. And this is a book that begins on Amor Fati and ends on the eternal recurrence of the same, and incipit tragödia. May tragedy, incipit tragödia perhaps, may tragedy begin, arise again, which is the leitmotif of Nietzsche's Zarathustra. But now let's read. And I will comment wherever my fancy takes me. There is something of the American Indian, something of the savagery peculiar to the Indian blood, in the way the Americans strive for gold, say money, and their breathless haste in working, the true vice of the New World, is already starting to spread to old Europe, or actually it's already infecting old Europe, as Nietzsche says in the German, which I have here. Making old Europe savage and covering it with a most odd, they translate here mindlessness, but I would say Geistlosigkeit is a lack of spirit, spiritlessness. A very strange, eerie spiritlessness is taking over Europe, Nietzsche observes. Already one is ashamed of keeping still. Long reflection almost gives people a bad conscience. One thinks with a watch in hand as one eats lunch, with an eye on the financial pages. One lives like someone who might always miss out on something. Rather do anything than nothing. Even this principle is a cord to strangle all culture and all higher taste. Just as all forms are visibly being destroyed by the haste of the workers, so, too, is the feeling for form itself. The feeling for form itself is destroyed by the haste in work. The ear and eye for the melody of movements. The proof of this lies in the crude obviousness which is universally demanded in all situations in which people want, for once, to be honest with others. In their relations with friends, women, relatives, children, teachers, students, leaders and princes, one no longer has time and energy for ceremony, for civility with detours, for esprit in conversation, and in general for any otium, the Latin notion for Moosa or skole, or leisure, of course, in English. No detour in conversation, no esprit in conversation, because we're always trying to overpower the other. Again, it's quite important that this is in the fourth book, in the book that leads on to the thought of Zarathustra and to the thought of the eternal recurrence of the same. And of course that it begins with amor fati, for life in a hunt for profit constantly forces people to expend their spirit to the point of exhaustion in continual pretense or outsmarting or forestalling others. The true virtue today is doing something in less time than someone else. Publish or perish, as academia tells young academics, which is why I'm not playing this game. I will not publish or perish. I'd rather perish, actually. And in fact, I think it's now the time to see who's intrinsically, truly, innerly excited and it lives in a fire for something, or whether it was ever only just for a career and status in this moment. So we are to do something in less time than someone else. Right? We need to be very original, for example, in academia, or in any other career, of course, as well. And that can be measured down to bits. And thus hours in which honesty is allowed, Nietzsche continues, those hours are rare. During those hours of honesty, however, one is tired and wants not only to let oneself go, but also to lay oneself down and stretch oneself out unceremoniously to one's full length and breadth. It always struck me as a bit strange that we speak of relaxation, a word that to my knowledge comes from agriculture, when you relax the ox from the yoke. When we think of our time of leisure that we are allowed sometimes. This is the way people now write letters, Nietzsche says. The style and spirit of which will always be the true sign of the times. If sociability and the arts still offer any delight, it is the kind of delight that overworked slaves make for themselves. How frugal our educated and uneducated have become concerning joy, Freude. How are they becoming increasingly suspicious of all joy? And again, just to say this, the obvious. The book is called Die fröhliche Wissenschaft, the joyful science. No joy without otium, if you want a slogan. No joy without proper Moosa. Because joy is something as Moosa that opens up to me, that likes me, and I respond to it in a liking, loving way. How they are becoming increasingly suspicious of all joy. More and more work gets all good conscience on its side. The desire for joy already calls itself a need to recuperate and is starting to be ashamed of itself. One owes it to one's health. That is what one says when caught on an excursion in the countryside. Soon we may well reach the point where one can't give in to the desire for a vita contemplativa, that is, taking a walk with ideas and friends, without self-contempt and a bad conscience. Of course, ideally the university would be such a place, but if you introduce the same mechanisms that rule outside the university, you destroy this and you create a certain competitiveness, even amongst the youngest, that doesn't really serve the purpose of what a university should do. Well, formerly it was the other way around. Work was afflicted with a bad conscience. A person of good family concealed the fact that he worked if need compelled him to work. The slave worked under the pressure of the feeling that he was doing something contemptible. Doing was itself contemptible. Nobility and honor are attached solely to otium and bellum, leisure and war. That was the ancient prejudice. So I'll leave you with that and invite you to read the passage for yourself, and if you can also perhaps get a copy of the German text and read it across sometimes, and always make sure when you read a text that you actually read the text, which means to let the text speak for itself and don't wander off into weird associations, but let the text open up in and by itself and see from out of which it speaks. And because that's Moosa, perhaps, that which opens up to us a certain likeliness, something that likes us and invites us to love and appreciation of the world, so that the world arises, because the world isn't just things that are scattered around everywhere. So thank you very much indeed. As always, feel free to share the videos, subscribe to the channel, and support the channel on Patreon or other ways. Be very grateful for that. All the best. Keep well.